is Dennis Michelson. It's time to go down on the farm and talk to Mr. Scott Lay from Agricen, telling you about a new product called Terramar. Well, it's not really a new product, Scott, but it's great to talk about a product that is gaining acres when it comes to corn and soybeans. Welcome back to the show.
Dennis, always a pleasure to join you and your listeners. Hope all is well in the Danville metro area today.
Absolutely. We could use a little more rain, but that's what a lot of folks are saying. And, well, when it comes to wanting a little more rain, when it comes to being concerned about stress in our corn and soybean canopies this time of the year, that's where Terramar comes into play. Tell us a little bit about this product.
Terramar, as you indicated, is a new technology for the Midwest corn and soybean market that we've had commercially available in high-value fruit and vegetable crops in Florida and California and the coastal areas. It's simply a combination of a biological extraction of seaweed kelp and a carbon source that does two things. One, it helps to minimize the impact of heat and drought stress in the plant, and we can talk a little more about what that means. And then secondly, it helps with nutrient uptake, which, as we move through the pollination or flowering to grain fill stages in both corn and soybeans, it's a critical time in terms of nutrient consumption, nutrient demand. So the more groceries, so to speak, we can get into that plant, the better chance we have to optimize yield.
And Scott, that's what I find very intriguing about the Terramar product is, again, it's all about getting more out of the nutrients that you already applied by increasing that nutrient uptake. That's part of the Terramar story.
Very much the case. And as we've talked about on several occasions, Dennis, sometimes the answer is not more fertilizer or more nutrients. And this is certainly an example of that. Again, we're trying to protect the yield potential that exists by minimizing yield-robbing factors like heat and drought stress, which are unfortunately all too often a common impediment to yield through the month of July and as that crop matures.
And it really doesn't matter a lot of these products-wise whether they're being applied to a fruit crop or a nut crop like the almond crop out in California or to corn and soybeans. The actual game plan works similar even across a much different type of product that we're trying to grow in the fields.
That's very much the case. From a biological standpoint, plants are plants, crops are crops. And while almonds and carrots and lettuce, vegetable crops are biologically different than corn and soybeans, those factors that drive or impact yield are very comparable. So we've learned a great deal, again, through our experiences in those fruit and vegetable crops. And now, over the last couple of years, we've screened this product, Terramar, in corn and soybeans and had very consistent results across a wide geography in the Midwest.
And I think this is the perfect time for folks to start experimenting and see what Terramar can do on their crops and their fields. Because, in statistical climatology, if you look at the weather as a whole, we're into a weather pattern that's more similar to the 1920s and the 1930s. And we all remember about the horrible droughts, the horrible big swings in weather we had back then. That's what we're getting into, and this is not going to be a one-season thing. This is going to be sort of that new normal for the next 15 or 20 years. We're going to need to combat those high-stress situations with a little bit smarter agronomy.
I think that is the case. Now, to be clear, Dennis, I don't remember the 20s and 30s. Certainly read about the Great Dust Bowl and that period of time. But in all seriousness, we recognize that, again, heat and drought-like conditions impact yield. That's a fact. So we need to find or identify ways in which, and again, technology or Terramar is not a replacement for precipitation, nor does it make a 95-degree day 75 degrees, as we'd like to see. But if you can round off those corners, so to speak, and minimize the impact of that heat and or drought stress in the plant, that's a positive thing that, again, buys you more time, allows that plant to respire more efficiently, create more chlorophyll, greater photosynthesis, and so on, that leads to a more consistent and productive yield.
And that's what I really like about what Agricen and Loveland Products are doing with a lot of these different technologies that they're introducing, is they're making sure that they only get them out there in more widespread use after they've had a chance to really do some great field trials. And you talked about the wide array of field trials that you took from areas like Kansas that are notoriously dry this time of the year to areas like central Indiana for soybeans that get more typical weather. And the return on investment and the return in bushels has been quite amazing.
It has. And again, what we do is based in science, and that's the foundation from which we start. And then we attempt to, again, address challenges to yield and productivity, and the ROI needs to be there. Our averages across a wide range of corn trials is in that 6 to 8 bushel yield impact, which is very positive. And soybeans, obviously, it's a lower yielding crop in terms of, from a numerical standpoint, but we're looking at probably a 3 to 5 bushel range on average of a yield impact in soybeans. Again, there are instances where perhaps the conditions are more challenging, meaning heat and drought, where we've seen upwards of 10 and 12 bushel responses in corn and something similar to that in soybeans. So we're confident in terms of the consistency that Terramar will deliver in terms of the yield impact. And what we really like from a scientific standpoint, we can demonstrate specific factors in that plant that lead to a better outcome. Again, increased nutrient uptake, we can easily measure that by way of taking tissue samples and evaluating or measuring specifically the level of nutrients expressed in that plant. That's important. And we can also measure such factors in corn as the canopy temperature. We understand the impact that heat has during pollination. And if our lab trials have demonstrated we're able to reduce that canopy temperature by a range of 3 to 5 degrees Fahrenheit over a period of 2 to 3 to upwards of 4 weeks, that creates a more hospitable environment for that corn to pollinate and the grain to fill, which leads to better results.
And great side-by-side trials that you sent me some pictures of that show the overall better health of your crop just by managing that stress a little better. Well, Scott, before we let you go, remind folks how easy it is to get more information about Terramar.
You bet, Dennis. You can go to our website, agricen.com. Obviously, Terramar is available through Nutrient Ag Solutions. And you can reference the portfolio of products, of which Terramar is one, by visiting with your local Nutrient Ag Solutions retail branch and or going to their website to learn more about Terramar.
Mr. Scott Lay, as always, thanks for laying some great information on us about an interesting new product that we might want to take a look at. Thank you so much for going down on the farm with us today.